First thing we're going to do is undo the battery with an 8mm wrench. And we're also going to be adding wires to this, so we'll get to that a little later. Okay, here's a quick look. I got the AEM failsafe. Okay, this is the wideband. Also has a boost gauge on it. You can data log, do a lot of fun stuff. And then here's the wiring that you have that comes off of the wideband that plugs into the exhaust. And it's pretty simple. It's just going to have a tip on it that we're going to put into the back. Okay, then the different faces, if you're doing boost or if you're doing air fuel, whichever one. USB to USB, more vacuum to tap into the vacuum line. And then the ocean of wires, which may seem intimidating at first, but it's really not too bad. It's all, they've done all the wiring on this end. So basically, wired in is a USB thing that'll just be popping out. And then you just pretty much take each of these wires and put them where they need to go. AEM has their instructions, which we'll be following, and anyway, that's basically the kit here. This is the fail-safe, so it has a few more options than the traditional one. Okay, I also bought this gauge pillar pod, and it just slips over the factory one, and I have another one out of a different car that I'm going to attempt to use first, just because I like, if I'm going to drill a hole into something, I'd prefer not to do it in the original Cobra pieces. That's just personal preference, but it just slides on the back and you attach it, and then that's where our gauge is going to go. Alright, so here we are on the driver's side of the car, and this is where I installed my wideband. As you can see, it's on the driver's side, and that's because the passenger side is where the fuel comes in on the fuel rail, and so if the car is going to lean out, it's going to do it on the driver's side first. So that's why I decided to do it here. A lot of people will actually just screw the wideband into one of their existing O2 sensors for the rear, and that's not quite as accurate. So to do it right, it should be here, coming within about a foot off of the exhaust manifolds. And so what I had to do was weld in the bung, which is just like another O2 sensor port. Okay, so as you can see, it's just, I drilled a hole and I cut into the stock exhaust pipe and just had it welded, and so now I had another port to screw the O2 into. This is just the wire that's coming off of it, which we'll plug in later, and I just had it zip tied after driving it home from where I had it welded. If you take your exhaust off of the car to do this part, then just remember you want to make sure that you have clearance on this, on the wideband sensor. For example, if I had put it in up here, then, you know, with the pipe off of the car, it would have looked like a good spot, but now it wouldn't fit on the car. So just make sure that you put it where it'll still fit, and it still has room to come out here and not hit the rest of the car. I'm running this on a Cat X pipe, and so we're having it before the catalytic converters. And also you should have a 10-degree angle of the O2 sensor, meaning you want it kind of pointed downward, and that way it helps from like condensation and stuff getting on the sensor. So that's where it's installed here, just on the driver's side, right after the manifolds. There's a few places to run the wire. You can go underneath the driver's seat. There's a hole in the frame underneath the carpet, kind of where the wire goes through for the power seat. And another common place that I'll be doing is underneath the shifter, because there's already a nice big gap there. So the next thing we have to do is to pull off the shift knob and then pull that bezel out. Okay, the shift knob just comes off by unscrewing it counterclockwise. Just going to set that aside now. This little piece, sometimes it also comes out. It's on the shift knob. Okay, so now we're just going to pull the bag up over this, and we're also going to pull the bezel out by grabbing down here on both sides and pulling towards us. Just pull it straight back so you don't break any clips, and then we'll have a cigarette lighter that we need to unplug. Okay, so I just pulled back on this. I pulled up here where there's a clip, and then down towards the bottom. Now this is loose. Pretty much move it out of the way. Expose the shifter or the cigarette lighter, which I already have unplugged. But to unplug it, you just take this connector right here, push down on the top of it, and slide it out. Just a regular plug. Okay, so now we have an area down in here where we can run the wire. Okay, next I'm going to remove these bolts, 8mm. And so I just have my little 1/4" drive, a little wobbly on there to help me get into the top one so I'm not scratching up the dashboard or anything. Okay, so down in here we can now just move this bracket forward a little bit, and if you look down you can see the transmission right there, so that's where we're going to be coming through, and this way we won't have to tear into any bags or anything. We can just kind of go around it. Okay, here's the sensor wiring, and so the smaller one is what we're going to feed up through the transmission area, and then this is just where it plugs into the wideband sensor. Okay, so you can see we just fed it through that hole right here, and then we'll just put it on the inside of the bracket probably, and then just coming up into here. Okay, so we have the wire coming through here, and then we're just going to run it underneath this bezel, and then we're going to connect it through here. If you can see with my left hand, I'm going to reach around, and there's a hole in the kind of by where the OBD2 is. And just like so, you can grab it and pull it out and feed it right through here. Okay, now that this wire is run underneath this little bezel, I can just put the screws back in and very gently tighten it down until it's snug. Okay, so now we're just pulling this wire down through underneath the car, and we're going to run this wideband over the wideband wiring over the subframe connector, and then just towards us this way. We're going to run it up alongside the car as far away from the exhaust as we can get it. Now we're going to grab our wire that's coming off of our bung, and it's coming down and just meeting up with our wire that we have coming up the side of the car. Now we're just going to plug it in and then put the clip down so that it's all snug. So now we're going to pull from inside the car to get it good and snug and tied up along the body, and we're going to use zip ties to keep it on this side of the car away from the exhaust. I went and bought these stainless steel cable ties, and this is what I'm going to be using to put them to wire up the car underneath. That way I'm not going to have to worry about them corroding. So here's a little rundown where we are now. Here's the wideband. It's tapped into the X pipe within about 12 inches from the manifolds where it's recommended. The wire then comes back. This is where it plugs into the other connector that goes up into the car. You can follow that back, and I have two stainless steel zip ties that went through the top holes there around the subframe connector. Okay, so it passes over the subframe connector, and then as you can see right here, I used another zip tie, another stainless steel zip tie to mount it closer to the car and keep it away from the spinning drive shaft and up high away from the exhaust. So this is the route that I chose. From here it goes up into the up past the transmission, up through the shifter. That's how it gets into the car. Okay, now for this A-pillar, just grab up top here and just pull it straight out. You can see it has some clips and a little guide, and just gently put it out of the way. Okay, so once you've pulled your wire through here, just kind of bunch up the excess wire, and this is a good place to kind of keep it. Then take the wire and run it up over the steering column. Make sure it doesn't interfere with any of the U-joints or anything up in there. Just have it go up over there, over the fuse box panel here, and then it'll come out right here, and now we can run it up to the A pillar. Okay, next we need to remove this kick panel that comes through here, and you just pull up on it. Okay, just remove it out of the way. Now pull this kick panel back just enough to remove the weather stripping so that you can run your wire through here. And bring it up to where you're going to want it, giving yourself enough slack, and then just slide it in between that little crease. Okay, also run the rest of the wires that same path. Okay, just run the rest of the wires the same way through here and up to where the gauge is going to be. Okay, so our wires are run through the shifter, out here, up underneath the dashboard, over the fuse panel, through here. There's a little kind of a valley that they went into, and then out the top.